Well, it has almost been a year to the date since we last talked with Iron Maiden's Bruce Dickinson. Now, fresh off a soccer match, we welcome him back with a new album, The Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Bruce?
Hello.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
All right, The Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, and the first thing I heard about it, when I heard the album was it's a concept album, and that's your first, and I'd like to know why you chose that route.
Well, we've been thinking about doing a concept album for years. I mean, ever since we did Number of the Beast, we've been talking about it in the band, but we never really came out with something that we felt natural enough to extend through the whole album, you know. And we've had concepts that have run through, like the stage show, and tied in with the album covers, and maybe one song on the album, but nothing that's been the whole thing with a story, interlinking all the songs and everything.
This is the first single released in North America.
Yeah.
Can I Play With Madness? Why take so long?
We always had this thing, we said, well, why bother to release singles in North America when none of them stand a blind chance in whatever of really selling any copies, which was true. But this one, it got to number 3 in the English singles charts. And we said, well, that's a good omen, you know, and it was charting all across Europe in a lot of places, in Holland and in Germany. So we thought, well, maybe it's got a bit of a shot, so we thought we'd give it a go.
Play with madness.
With all this touring that you do you ever get burned out?
It's like anything else, isn't it? You know, I mean, everybody's got their days when you just don't want to get out of bed. And at the end of the day, you got to do it.
Right.
You know? And you'd be amazed what the human body can, you know, can put up with. I mean, I make this sound like, you know, kind of special forces survival school kind of. It's really not. It's really not. But, you know, you put out a lot of energy, but I find that if you approach it with enthusiasm and you like doing it,
no problem.
You get that feeling of kind of, you know, there's a kind of, oh, I'm tired and it feels good afterwards, you know. And you don't try and mess yourself up with, you know, chemicals and rubbish and all that stuff. I mean, I don't smoke and I'm pretty clean living. I mean, as far as, like, I don't take drugs and garbage, but if you're sitting on your butt all the time and, you know, can't get a job, can't do this. I mean, it's all right for me to talk. You know, people say it's all right for you to talk. You know, you make a lot of money being a rock singer. Yeah, it's true. You know, but nevertheless, you meet people who. I mean, there was a lot of times when I didn't make any money whatsoever, but I was very happy because I was doing something that I wanted to do. Right. You know, and that's the important thing, to do something you want to do all the time. If you can't do that all the time, at least do it some of the time. Do it in your time off, you know? Right. Think constructively about things and get stuck in, you know. We've got concept album for years. I mean, ever since we did Number of the Beast, album for years. I mean, ever since we did Number of the Beast, we've been talking about it in the band, but we never really came out with something that we felt natural enough to extend through the whole album, you know. And we've had concepts that have run through, like the stage show, and tied in with the album covers, and maybe one song on the album, but nothing that's been the whole thing with a story, interlinking all the songs and everything.
I'm surprised it took you so, you know, it took a group like Iron Maiden so long to do something like this.
Well,
it almost seemed expected.
Yeah, well, with all the bands that we sort of liked, from, you know, not just the sort of rock metalish bands like sort of Purple and Sabbath and bands like that, but, you know, bands like sort of Jethro Tull and Genesis and people like that have all done very conceptual things in their careers. It's not surprising that we should want to do it, but it's quite difficult to come up with something that doesn't feel very contrived. I mean, like, for example, when Rick Wakeman, who remembers Rick Wakeman? But, sure. You know, you remember Rick Wakeman, yeah, you're an old fart like me. You know?
Thank you.
I mean, when he did Six Wives of Henry VIII, which was loosely conceptual, each track was just about one wife of Henry VIII. It was a big hit. And then he did Journey to the Centre of the Earth, and then he did, like, Journey to the Centre of the Earth on ice, and, you know, and Journey to the Centre of the Earth, the pantomime, you know, and things like that. And it sort of, it got a bit silly, you know, in terms of, it's very easy to get carried away with the concept thing and get too specific on it. So you suddenly end up having, you know, featuring Sir Ralph Richardson doing narration and all this kind of stuff. And we didn't want to do that, so we wanted something that was just going to feel natural.
Is this going to be sort of an in-and-out conceptual thing? In other words, you'll do one and that'll be it?
I don't know. I mean, we did this one, and...
Did you have fun doing it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it only took us like 15 minutes to write the whole story.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How does this translate to stage, Bruce? I'm interested in what you're doing with the...
Well, there were two routes we could have taken. One was to do the... How can I put it? Start at the beginning, say, here we are at the PNE or whatever it is, Coliseum in Vancouver. Unfortunately, you have bought a ticket to the Iron Maiden show. You will now have to sit through 60 minutes of this concept album, which you may or may not understand, but it will be educational, and you will enjoy it. Which is garbage, really, because, I mean, at the end of the day, the album is the album, and the show it's a concert show, you know. It's not something for, like, the Arts Entertainment Channel.
Right.
So you have to get the mix right between the two. So it has its basis in the album cover, but there are moments, like, for example, when we play the title track, we put in some pretty heavy-duty symbolism in that, and that's mainly what all the concept bit is all around, is that particular track. The rest of it, we play it as songs, you know, and people can relate the songs to the album if they want, but the whole set stands up just on its own. There's a lot of old favourites in there, and there's a lot of songs that we've dug up which we haven't played on the last tour, for example, for the last actually couple of tours, some of them, you know, but stuff off Number the Beast and old stuff. So it's a really good concert set as well that stands up in its own right, with or without any concept attached.
Now, how do you avoid being a rock star amidst all this media attention and the fan adulation and everybody loving what you do? How do you avoid that syndrome?
That's loading a question, that, isn't it? The media attention, the fan adulation, everybody loving what you do. Under those circumstances, I think I'd find it very difficult to avoid being a rock star, but the truth of the matter is that not everybody loves what you do. In fact, a lot of people haven't really heard of Iron Maiden. You know, I walk down the street all the time and, you know, not everybody rushes up to me, you know. And as long as you realise that people who buy your records like what you do, but the rest of the world is kind of, doesn't owe you a living or owe you attention or anything, and, you know, that's the best way to avoid it. It's just to go around with the attitude that people are still people, no matter what you do for a living. Now I go on running around on stage, clowning around, hopefully making people happy every night, and I make records and stuff like that. But it doesn't really make me particularly special, because there are people that are doing lots and lots of other things which are actually far more useful. You know, I mean, if I was sitting on a desert island, I mean, being a bricklayer would be a much more, or a joiner or a carpenter or something, would be a much more useful skill to have than, you know, being a rock and roll
If you keep
singer.
yourself entertained.
Yeah, sure, you know. You know. So just try and keep a sense of proportion about things, and try and live your life with a reasonable amount of respect for other people.